Adventure is not outside a man. It is within. George Eliot. All right. Good morning. Welcome back again, if you saw the previous attempt, to another morning episode of the Liberty Dad Podcast, a discussion on politics and culture. I am your host, DL, America's most objective libertarian. If you're tuning in live, thank you so much for giving me your time so early and for being patient with some technical difficulties today. Turns out it was my fault, but I'm still going to blame Rumble for allowing the way that I clicked on the buttons and to get it all messed up. I'm still going to blame them because that's what a proper podcast host would do. They would blame the technology. I mean, what's technology going to do until the machines rise up? All right, let's get into this. All right, tonight at 9 p.m., I'm going to have a dad on my Dad Talk series, okay? So while you might say tonight at 9, unfortunately, this particular person was not able to make my 7:30 in the morning option or my 6:30 in the p.m. option. And they were like, well, how about 9 o'clock, somewhere around there after put the kids to bed? And I'm like, well, that would be fine, except for on Friday nights, my buddy comes over, and that's prime time cigar time. That's prime cigar time. So I was like, how about Thursday night? So what we're going to do is we're having this show this morning. So today's show right now is going to be what I would have had tomorrow morning, in theory, and then he would have been tomorrow night, and then I would have done something else today, and so I'm just kind of switching it all around. And so I chose this particular topic because it's been going around, and I thought that I had something useful to say about it. So look forward tonight, 9 p.m. We're going to have, his name is Captain Ancapistan. Now, he has a real name, right? But we're trying to maintain some anonymity. He's going to be on the show tonight. He's a dad. We're going to talk about school and more. So again, tonight, 9 p.m., no show tomorrow morning, Friday. Okay, and I'll make sure to put that out on the socials a little bit later. As for today's show, let me give a disclaimer. I'm not really going to be talking anything profane, but it is an adult conversation, as you probably saw by the title. Number two, this is commentary. This is not marriage advice, okay? Each marriage has its own dynamic. Now, while what I have to say will be of value, it depends on various factors that may alter, like, say, what needs to happen and in what order. So don't watch my show, and then if you're having marriage problems, think that you're just going to take some bit of advice and run with it, and then all of a sudden your marriage is going to be in good shape. But that doesn't mean that you can't take my advice and work on your own self, whoever you are. So if you're a man, then the advice towards men will be relevant. If you're a woman, there's not going to be a whole lot of advice toward women because, I talk to men. But if there's any advice there or any ideas that are relevant to you, those may work for you as well. But if you're having any problems in your marriage, please see a marriage counselor, okay? There are people designed for this. You do not ever, ever, ever try to fix your marriage on the basis of what a podcast host has said, okay? If you're having problems, you seek out professional assistance, okay? Because that person can do things like ask questions, get both sides of the story, weigh it all out, and say, all right, here's what you need to do, here's what you need to do, right? They can do that. I'm just talking about this topic in general. So I just want to make that very clear so that nobody comes back later and like, dude, you ruined my marriage. I'll be like, well, you didn't listen to my advice, the most important advice that I gave you right up front. And then the last part here is, I'm speaking mostly from the male perspective because that's what I do, right? So I'll mostly be talking from the male perspective. I might touch upon some things for the women. But I want you to know, we are not beating up on women. That's not what we do. In fact, the whole idea of dad talk is to elevate dad voices, not beat up on women. Okay? Remember, it takes two. It's a marriage. It's two people. Now, if you're in a gay marriage, I don't know what to say to you. I mean, I'm not being rude. I just I don't know I don't have any concept of those dynamics. Okay. So perhaps some of this stuff would be relevant to you, perhaps not. I don't really know. Okay. So now that we got the disclaimers out of the way, the last few days, there's been a raging debate. It's blew up on social media about, do men need sex? The Lila Rose Show, which I'm not familiar with, posted a video with commentary, and boy, did the crowd go wild. Men generally were like, hell yeah, we do. And women were like, no, you don't. It's not a need. It's not like food. It's not like water. It's not like air. All right. And then there were exceptions on both sides. There were some women that were like, yeah, actually some men do need it. And then there were some men that were like, no, we don't. We could be a real man and not get laid. Like, whatever. So, but generally speaking, it was basically the battle of the sexes all over again. So what I want to do first is I want to review her post. And in reviewing her post, we are going to kind of get a gist of what she had to say and kind of what started all of this. And why is this not cooperating again? Things love to just not cooperate. Nope, that's not what I want. How about this? Nope, not that one either. There we go. Okay, so let's see here. Boom. So here's what Lila Rose said. We'll watch the video in just a moment. She said, she led with, men don't need sex. Okay, not a good start. Just want to point that out. Our culture is so hypersexualized that the idea of celibate priest leaves people in disbelief as if it's impossible. That's heartbreaking. Have we really forgotten that self-control and virtue are within reach? Look at Jesus Christ. The most perfect man to ever walk the earth was celibate and sinless before he was crucified for our sins. Shouldn't he be the supreme model for manhood, self-mastery, discipline, total self-gift, all out of love? Priests choose celibacy so their hearts can belong entirely to God, as St. Paul writes in 1 Corinthians 7:32-35. And then she quotes him, I want you to be free from anxieties. The unmarried man is anxious about the things of the Lord, how to please the Lord, but the married man is anxious about worldly things, how to please his wife, and his interests are divided. I say this for your own benefit, to secure your undivided devotion to the Lord. Abstinence, and she goes on now, this is back to Lila's comment. Abstinence isn't just for priests. Intermittent abstinence can also be a beautiful practice within marriage if a couple has a serious reason to delay bringing a baby into the world when practicing natural family planning. Spouses can grow in self-mastery, deepen their love, and remain faithful to God's design for marriage. Christ is the model, love is the reason, holiness is the goal. Watch episode 38, season 2, episode 38. Oh, no, I'm sorry. I got that wrong. Watch episode 238 of the Lila Rose Show, and then she has a link to it. And then here's the video. So the video caused a controversy, as did the very beginning of this. Men don't need sex. Now, let's be fair. We're objective on this show. She tried to come out later, and she reposted this post with another one, kind of following it up. And it appears what she was really trying to gear this conversation about toward was natural family planning. So it doesn't appear, and then she had a follow-up video a few days later, and where she kind of explains this. So it would seem that her intention was to say, like, look, there are times when maybe sex isn't necessary, okay? And then she's kind of going along that. But the video clip that she posted and the lead-in really it opened the door for a different perspective. That's what happened. And so that was the big mistake I think that was made. So what we're going to do on this show is I'm going to ignore all the parts about natural family planning, whether or not there are times for abstinence. We're not going to talk about those. Okay. And the reason is because what I really want to address is this idea of, do men need sex? And if so, why? I want to talk about that because that's what the debate was really raging about. Even if the debate kind of deviated from Lila's intended message, I want to talk about the debate, okay? So just to make that clear, we're trying to be fair to Lila here. It does appear that she had slightly different intentions than how the debate was raging. So we're going to talk about that. But first, let's play the video so that we get a better sense of why people were so bloody angry.
Can we all talk about Father Mike Schmitz?
I showed him to a girlfriend who's not Catholic, and she's like, when's Mass?
What about the man needing sex? That's just a cultural narrative that basically says men are like animals and they have to be able to do this sexual thing. Otherwise, they're going to go. We don't need sex.
It's a gift
of coming together, and it's designed to bring life into the world.
I think the sexiest thing about a guy is like their self-control. And my husband has amazing self-control. So after baby number 4, when we started practicing NFP, it was like we couldn't do it sometimes when we wanted to. And that kind of made things a little steamier, like not gonna lie. It's hard on him too, don't get me wrong. People will say, well, oh, do you just do other things for your husband?
All right. So there you have it. Now, this was Lila's cut up. This is not somebody else that watched the show and was trying to, dunk on her or what have you. So she is ultimately, at the end of the day, if you are communicating a message, first and foremost, it is your responsibility to ensure that how you communicate is the way, you're responsible for the message. If I get on here and I bumble the message and I say it all goofy or weird, or I cut up my own video and I kind of misrepresent what I'm trying to say, that's a me problem. So in this particular context, I'm going to say like, hey, Lila made the mistake, because from that clip, it's not unreasonable to walk away with a message that says, hey, they're talking about how men don't need to have sex. I mean, they compared men to celibate priests. I'm just going to tell you, I'm not a celibate priest. I'm not even a priest, right? There is nothing about, and once you think about this, a celibate priest is not celibate during certain times. They're celibate all of the time. So when you compare a husband to a celibate priest, the message is easily, you shouldn't want sex most of the time, all the time, or whatever. And then I don't know if you caught it in there. I don't know who the other woman was, but she's like, it is a gift. Okay. Now there may be longer context. I did not cut that video up, and I did not watch the full video. But so in the middle of this conversation of like men don't need sex, here are these priests, why they're celibate, and look how sexy they are for their self-control. First of all, I don't really know too many women that have ever said, man, I'm looking for a dude that's got self-control. Like, not in the context of sex. Perhaps in the context of, like, sex with other people, right? Most women will say, hey, you better have self-control in that context. But in the context of that relationship, I've never really heard a woman say, I'm really looking for a man that has so much self-control that he doesn't ask for sex, he doesn't want it a lot. In fact, that seems weird to me. And it's, so this idea ultimately is what we need to talk about. We need to talk about, do men need sex? Well, I'm going to reference a lot. Now, I can't show it on the screen just because it's a book, but I'm going to reference a book called Wild at Heart. The title of the book, let me see the full title here. Let's see here. Give me a second. Let me, I don't have the rest of the Wild at Heart. It's called Wild at Heart. This is a Christian book, by the way. Oh, goodness. Why is it? Wild at Heart, Discovering the Secret of a Man's Soul. So this is written by a man named John Eldredge, who is a counselor. And he wrote this book back in like 2004. That's what he's most notable for. And then I think he did a revised version some years later. So I'm going to be referencing that. So let's talk about this whole men don't need sex. Like, where are we going with this? Is it true? So first and foremost, we'll start off with this. Let's acknowledge a fact. Factually speaking, no, men do not need sex. Okay? Like, in other words, you can live your whole life, never get laid, and you will survive. Okay? It's not like food, water, and air. Air, you got like what? 3 minutes, and then you're done. Like water, you got like 3 days, then you're done. Food, it's like 3 weeks, then you're done, somewhere around there, right? There's no like, oh man, if a guy goes this long without getting laid, he will die. That doesn't happen. He may be miserable, he may be grumpy, maybe a lot of things, right? Maybe distracted, whatever, okay? But you're not going to die. So yes, that is factually true. However, it's not really relevant because at the end of the day, air, water, food, those are things that you need for survival, whether you're in a relationship or whether you're not. Doesn't matter. You could be a single man, you could be a married man. You need those things. You need them equally, okay? However, I will argue that men, particularly men in a relationship, and I'm not particularly Christian, but we can focus on married if you want. But men in a relationship need sex in a different context, not the same need, right? Or you might look at it as the relationship needs intimacy. You could look at it like that. But I actually want to focus on men needing sex. So let me read. I think this is a very interesting part from this is from the introduction of the book, Wild at Heart. I'm going to read it to you because we were just talking about like, hey, there's a lot of people out there like men don't need sex. Let me tell you about men, blah, 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 blah. All right, here's what he says at the very beginning of the book. Most messages for men ultimately fail. Interesting point, right? The reason is simple. They ignore what is deep and true to a man's heart, his real passions, and simply try to shape him up through various forms of pressure. This is the man you ought to be. This is what a good husband, father, Christian, churchgoer ought to do. Fill in the blanks from there. He is responsible, sensitive, disciplined, faithful, diligent, etc. Many of these are good qualities. That these messengers are well-intentioned, I have no doubt. But the road to hell, as we remember, is paved with good intentions. That they are near total failure should seem obvious by now. No, men need something else. They need a deeper understanding of why they long for adventures, battles, and beauty, and why God made them first like that. And they need a deeper understanding of why women long to be fought for, to be swept up into adventure, and to be the beauty. For that is how God made them as well. Now, this is a Christian book. I am not necessarily Christian, but I want to say this. I think the message from this book is still valuable. If you extract the parts about God made you like this, I think the message still is fundamentally true. Men need adventure. Where was it? Adventure, battle, and beauty. Okay? So, and let me prove it to you with a meme of all things. I'm going to prove this to you with a meme. So, have you ever seen this meme or one like it? Let me do this here. Let me make me a little bit out of the way. There we go. All right. Here's this meme. 90% of guys daydreaming is spent mentally preparing for this exact scenario. And it shows a crusader. And you can ignore the specific scene here, but it's basically a man in battle, you know. And the presumption is that the man is the good guy fighting the bad guy. Excuse me. So, and there are many memes like this. You can go online and you can search for, many women will post something that'll say, men, is this true? And then it will depict some man being the hero in the story or doing something, you know, amazing. You know, quite often it's like saving somebody. Think about a lot of our movies, like movies that I grew up on that really got to men, you know, like Rambo, right? Like, what did Rambo do? Like, he was portrayed as the good guy, trying to just live his life. But then when he had to, he sprung into action and he saved people and he did valiant things. Why do those messages appeal to us? Because men need battle. They need adventure, right? And then if you remember correctly from most of those movies, what happened toward the end? They got the girl. Not always, but generally speaking, they got the girl. So I think even though this book is Christian centric, I think the idea is that men need battle, adventure, and beauty. We need to go and experience things and have fun. It's like, I'll give you an example from my own life. Literally just the other day. I'm 47. That should be very important for this story. So my son has been getting into fishing, And some of the neighbor boys have been coming down, and we have a lake that's about 1 mile around that's right behind our house. It's literally like 30 feet from our house. And the way the lake works, it goes around, and then I can actually, from my back door, I can see the dock, which is owned by our association. And so what a lot of people do is they'll come, the neighbors will come, and maybe even some people that aren't neighbors will come, and they'll fish off the dock or along the side of the dock. And then inevitably people will come around and come over to our, like behind our house, and then fish. And so some of the boys were out there fishing, and I told my son, I think I told you this story the other day. I was like, hey, get your pole, get your tackle box, and get out there and go do some fishing with them boys. And so he did. And I went out and I just told the boys, I said, hey guys, I said, just let me know when you're in the yard so that there's no surprises and I'm aware. That way, everybody can be safe, catch lots of fish, and have a lot of fun. And they're like, okay, yeah, no problem. So they were really super duper polite about it, right? So they're out there fishing, and this was like Saturday or something. And so I'm out working, and there's some trees that are also out there. And so what happened? Inevitably, one of them got their fishing line caught in the tree. And so they're trying to get it out. So I go over to try to help them. And it's kind of caught, like weaved almost in between the branches. And so I'm like pulling on it. And they had a relatively nice lure on the end of it. And I'm like, man, I don't want these guys to lose their lure. So then I thought about it for a second, and I was like, let's give it a go. So I literally climbed up in the tree, crawling across the branch. I'm like standing on a branch that's probably about the size of my forearm. So it's not terribly big. I'm like, this is my adventure now. Like, I'm like, I think I can do this. I think I can crawl up in this tree like I'm a kid, go and save the fishing lure. Right? Now, why did I do that? Did I do that so I could tell you about this on the show? No, because I had no idea I was going to be talking about this. I did it because I was just like, I bet I can still climb that tree. I bet I can go and get that fishing lure for these boys. And I did, by the way. I ended up getting it. So it took a little bit of work, and I got scratched up quite a bit. And I was concerned at one point that the branch might break. Now, I'm not very big. I'm 120 pounds soaking wet. But the branch wasn't exactly that big, and I'm crawling along it. And there was every opportunity for me to fall out of the tree or for the branch to break and me to go tumbling down into the water, which would not have been very pleasant. And I might have actually gotten hurt. It's possible. I wasn't very high up in the tree. I was probably, I don't know, about 12, maybe 15 feet up. But again, when you fall from a distance and when you're 47, things hurt just a little bit more than when you were 27. Okay? So I think there's plenty of evidence all around us that men, they require the battle, the adventure, the beauty. You can go on Facebook. I've talked about this before. You can go on there and you can see that there are tons of videos showing guys walking by their wives and like smacking their butt, right? Or like, and there'll be variations of them, but the idea being like this is a man thing, right? And a lot of men identify with this, right? Why? Because it doesn't matter if I've been married for 1 year or 20 years, right? I still like to have that vision of this is the beauty that I scored, right? Like I've been married for about 12 years. And sometimes it's another video that you see, and this happens to me all the time. And my wife and I joke about this. There's a video where it's like things I do that turn my husband on. And so then it'll show a woman sitting there reading a book, and then the man comes over and he's like, hey, baby, whatever, right? And then it'll be like doing the dishes. And then like she's doing the dishes, and then the guy comes over and he's like, grabbing all up on her, right? And it's just all these different variations of very normal, everyday, mundane things that do not necessarily exude sexuality. There's even videos where it's like, my husband, how's that video go? It's like my husband, when he's looking for sexy time and I'm looking like a hot mess. And then it shows like the video of the gorilla or, some animal, sitting there kind of, with their legs propped open, kind of like brown chicken, brown cow, right? Like these things exist. This is a truth. So despite the fact that this book is Christian, I don't think plays any role in whether or not the other part of the message is true, right? I think it is true. This is what men need. Now, how does that relate to sex? Well, one, the beauty, the adventure, the battle, I think those all still play a role because at the end of the day, why do men do many of the things that they do? To get the girl, right? And I want you to think about this. If I'm a man and I've been married for 10 years and I still want to get the girl, that is a great thing. Think about that. Like, I didn't just say, oh, I got married. All right, I'm good to go now. No, I still want to get the girl, right? Now, yeah, sometimes we have the dad bod and, maybe we're not as young and fit, at some point as we once were. But every man and every woman, and when I say every, like, I get it, not every. We have to be careful with our absolutes. But most people want to be found attractive at the beginning of their marriage, in the middle of their marriage, and when they're way older. Now, there may be differences, right? When I'm 70, I'm not going to be like, no, I will be. When I'm 70, I'm going to be like, check out how strong I am. And I'm still going to try to impress my wife. It may be different. I may not be doing it the same way as I did when I was 20, but I'm still going to feel good about myself if she's impressed, right? Because I think that these characteristics, these qualities are inherent to men. Now, let me jump to something else here. Because what I see a lot of times is, men get a little bit whiny, and it's true. I'm going to lay it out like it is. Some of the men get a little whiny because women will sometimes say, like, I have high expectations, and they'll come out and they'll be like, he's got to be 6 foot tall, make 6 figures, have a 6-inch, respectable member or more, whatever. And they'll come up with all this crazy stuff. And it's not that men have a problem with expectations. I think it's really the problem with, is there going to be a reward at the end? I mean, why don't you think about it? I just talked about, like, we watch Rambo and we just envision ourselves, being in a battle. I'm not going to battle so that I can go home and sit alone by myself, right? And have nothing. I want, like, riches, women or woman, right? I want something out of it. What's the point of going through all that work if I don't get something out of it? So let me play a video because this one kind of went around and it kind of got some people upset. And I got some comments on it. Let's just say that.
Diabolical things I want in a man. Number 1, height. My man's gotta be above 6'2". My last 2 boyfriends were 6'3". Both of them. And they were jacked. And they looked really good. How am I supposed to downgrade from that? So.
Okay. Can I just pause and just say, your last 2 boyfriends, just point that out. You're like, oh, I'm a downgrade. Okay, but those are your last 2 boyfriends. You didn't keep them. Just point that out.
Unfortunately, my next man will have to be 6'2" and up. Number 2, you can't have a gut. I need you built. I need you fit and going to the gym multiple times a week. I'm sorry, I'm just not going to date a fat guy. If I can be in the gym 5 days a week and be fit and care about how I look, you can do it. Number 3, he cannot have a salary cap. Whatever career he's in, he needs to have multiple streams of income, and we need to be able to make as much money as possible. That's why I will never date a guy who works in corporate. What is your 100K salary cap going to do for me?
So just want to point out, men that are getting angry and you're like, I work a corporate job. So do all the CEOs, many of them who are also 6 foot tall. She said she don't want a man in corporate. So she's apparently excluding all the CEOs too. So quit your whining.
The max you'll ever be able to get to is 150? Yeah, no, we're good. I need you in a career that is going to make us money. I am a lover of luxury. I like expensive things. I like expensive vacations. So will you, if you're my man. So we need a career that can support that. Number 4, whenever we travel, he's got to be flying his business. I'm sorry, we're not sitting in economy together. It's just not happening. Again, this is where the lack of salary cap is really going to help. And number 5, he's got to have a really nice watch. I'm not really impressed when I hear somebody has a Rolex anymore because those can be really cheap. I would much prefer if you had an AP or a Patek and maybe multiple of them. The Rolex can be your day watch and it still better be 50K plus.
Boom, boom. All right. So I don't really care about that. Not just because I'm married, but there are 8 billion people on the planet. There is a woman. There probably is more than one woman that is the right match for you, men. Stop worrying about that woman that came out. Now, from my perspective, she's talking about a lot of she's talking about a lot of worldly type things. You know, it's almost like she wants to marry a lifestyle, not a man. So one of the things that I point out, and I was a bit crude. I was kind of nice about it, really. I reposted that video, and I said, what did I say? I'm trying to remember the names. I was like, it sounds like she wants a Christian Grey. Now, if you're like, who's that? If you're a man, you should say, who's that? I know it because I know a lot of things that I probably don't need to know. That's the character from 50 Shades of Grey. So, and the point that I was making is that if you're a woman, and I'm kind of speaking to women, if you're a woman and that's your vision, number one, be careful, because in this particular case, she sounds like she wants to not marry the man, she wants to marry the man's lifestyle, which is fine. That happens all the time. Consenting adults can do whatever they want, but you need to be aware of the consequences. And the consequences, maybe they're good, maybe they're bad. The consequences in this particular case are going to be that if you marry a man's lifestyle, you become basically a resource. Why? Because men don't do things for nothing. So I was kind of crudely making this joke, and I've made this before, and I kind of mean it, but I kind of don't. And I mean it in the sense like there is a certain reality, but I don't mean it in like this is always the case and men are terrible people. I'm just kind of pointing out the fact that you don't, like there's no such thing as a free lunch, as we like to say in the libertarian community. So if you're looking for a man, you might say, well, I am going to the gym 5 times a week or however many times a week. I expect my man to go to the gym 5 times a week, right? You might say as a woman, well, I expect him to be, attractive. And look at me, I'm attractive. I expect him to wear nice things. Look at me, I wear nice things. Here's the catch. That's your expectation of what you want from him based on what you're doing. That doesn't mean that he's going to say, well, if I'm providing all these things, he will equally expect those same things from you. Therefore, he may be looking for some kink or some things in the bedroom. Or he may be the type of character that says, look, you're going to be my wife, but I have side chicks. That's the way that it works, right? And again, I'm not putting all men into this bucket. There are many men that are very wealthy, that are very monogamous as well. What I'm getting at is you don't get to decide why the other person does what they do and what they want in return. And what they want in return is not necessarily what you want in return. You may be talking past each other. So, and I say this, number one, is just kind of a word to the wise to young ladies, but also to young men who get frustrated, because I see a lot of men on there and they're like, I can't believe this. Women want this. Bro, that woman ain't for you. You probably, it sounds to me like many of you are looking for a woman that's going to marry you for the man you are. That's great. Okay. So go focus on that woman. Go find that one. And there are 8 billion people on the planet. We're roughly 50-50. Okay. So you got roughly 4 billion women out there. Not all of them, of course, because some of them are married. Many of them are young, blah, blah, blah. But you get the point, right? Go do the thing. Go identify who you are, what you're looking for, and find a mate that will meet those needs. But always be aware that what you want and what you want in return may not reciprocate in that same way. Okay? But again, I want to point out that it's not that men don't have a problem with expectations. I mean, perhaps the height one, perhaps things that are, that are fixed and they can't change. Once upon a time, being a 5'3" bloke myself, once upon a time, I did get kind of bent out of shape because I was like, man, and it wasn't in the context of women. It was just in the context of like, man, like every dude is bigger than me. And then finally I kind of got over it and I was like, all right, well, it is what it is. I'm 5'3". There's not much I can do about it. So people are going to either like me or they're not. And if they don't like me because I'm short, well then screw them. That was just my attitude. And then when it came to other guys, like, who were bigger than me and all that, I was like, all right, I can stop being afraid of guys because since there are so many dudes out there that are bigger than me, I got one of two choices: be afraid of everybody or stop worrying about it. And when I did, I realized something magical. I realized that my own confidence is what really drove other people to respect me. It wasn't my height. Now, to some degree, that may be the initiator, right? Like if somebody sees a short guy, they might initially create this perception in their mind about that person, and that's fine. But if you have confidence in yourself and you walk with an air of confidence, you put your shoulders back, you stand up straight, you walk in with your head up high, not nose high, head up high. You walk like you are somebody. People will look at you, and the fact that you're short will suddenly stop mattering so much because they'll be like, that dude, he's somebody. Let me prove it to you, sort of. So I went to Indonesia with my wife many years ago, and I got this interesting jacket. It's a sports jacket, a sport coat, and it doesn't have a collar. It's really avant-garde, and I liked it. And I was like, oh, this is cool, and it fit me because, you know, Asians are short and small, so like half of anything in there fits me right off the rack. So I wore it, and when I got back, I was proud of this because I was like, man, this is really cool looking. So I would wear it everywhere. So I did the typical, you know, rich guy thing. I wore jeans and like maybe a t-shirt and then this sport coat. So I happened to be going to the bank one day, just perhaps. And I was wearing this not because I was going to the bank. I was wearing it because I was still enjoying this new clothing that I was wearing. So I went to the bank and I walk up, and this older man, this man is like probably like 20 to 25, maybe even 30 years older than me. Very clearly older man. He goes, "You look important. Let me hold the door for you." And I don't remember what I said. It was something kind of humble. I was like, you know, I said something like, you know, I do my best. Thank you so much, sir, or something like that. You know, I was humble about it, you know, but just think about it. Like I walked in with confidence. You ever seen the Spider-Man movie where, and I'm trying to remember which one it was, but I think it's the one where he becomes the Black Spider-Man. And so he's like dealing with this frustration, and then the black little blob that came from outer space gets him and takes control and creates this new version of Peter. And he starts walking around with this like confidence. And then like he notices that he's walking down the street. The girls are checking him out, and people just seem to have this different respect for him. And he's all like, yeah, yeah. Like that's what happens in real life. I mean, maybe not to that exaggerated degree, but that's what happens, right? Like you walk around with confidence and people notice it. And it doesn't matter if you're a small fry guy like me or if you're a big, huge dude, right? That's got giant muscles, right? Like the fact that you're confident gives this aura about you, and people recognize it. And they will overlook, most people, they will overlook if you're a short, scrawny guy. I promise you, because I've had it happen to me. And I've had it happen with people who don't know me. Their first impression was, this guy's walking around like he's somebody. Not somebody like, you know, arrogantly like, oh, he's somebody better than me. No, just he personally is somebody. So if you're one of those guys and you get bent out of shape over these kind of expectations, just know you need to focus on your own confidence. And when you do, it will be noticeable to other people. And then also know that, yes, there are some women that have crazy expectations, and that's okay. If you don't meet those expectations, that's fine. Because guess what? There are women out there that don't meet your expectations. Some guys are going to be like, look, I like bigger women. And so all the skinny women, they're going to be out. Some guys are going to be like, I like skinny and fit women. So all the obese women, women with extra weight, they're going to be out, right? Everybody has an expectation, and everybody discriminates against a potential mate, right? Like for me, I'm not particularly into blondes. So when I was looking, I wasn't really checking out blondes. I was looking for brunettes because that's the kind of woman that I like, right? So everybody has an expectation, and there will be somebody who doesn't fit your expectation, and there is nothing they can do about it. Because guess what? If I'm not big into blondes, well, a woman is naturally blonde. She could sure she could dye her hair, but she is still a blonde. And there could be a time where she is no longer dyeing her hair. So if I were to have married a woman who was a blonde that dyed her hair, I will have to get past the fact that there might be times where she just goes blonde, period, right? And hopefully you're getting the point here. Expectations are okay. Stop worrying about them. Worry about yourself, right? And that's going to go toward finding somebody. And if you said eventually getting laid, where's my button? There it goes. This is a little slow, right? You're correct, right? Because this whole episode is about sex, right? So let's continue on. I want to read something to you from that Wild at Heart book. So let's go back to the book here because I thought this is kind of interesting, talking about expectations and whatnot. So let's see here. Where's my yeah, here we are. Is this the one? No, this is not the one. This is give me a second. Let me go grab the one that where did it go here? Yes, this one. Click on it. All right. So it says, a young man recently came up to me very angry and distraught. He was frustrated at the way his father, a church leader, was coaching him in sports. He's a basketball player, and his team had made the city finals. The night of the big game, as he was heading out the door, his father literally stopped him and said, quote, "Now don't go out there and kick butt. That's just not a nice thing to do," end quote. I'm not making this up. What a ridiculous thing to say to a 17-year-old athlete. Go out there and give him, well, don't give him anything. Just be nice. Be the nicest guy the opposing team has ever met. In other words, be soft. This is a perfect example of what the church tells men. Someone I read said the church may have a masculine exterior, but its soul has turned feminine. Okay, so why do I tell you this part? It's not that men are afraid of expectations. And if you're a man, you should not be afraid of expectations. If you're on a basketball team, you are expected to go out there and play hard. Not necessarily mean, but play hard. Be good at it. Kick butt, right? When you're out in the world, be that 17-year-old basketball player. Go out there, kick butt, right? That's your attitude. That's what will score you somebody, right? That's what will help you find the person whose expectations you meet. Do that. All right, now let's shift to something else here, because whenever you talk about sex, there's all this conversation about cheating, right? Now, I'm going to say very upfront, if you're a man and you cheat on your spouse, you're a terrible, awful dude, period. Plain and simple, okay? Now, we can separate what you ought to do with understanding why people do things. Now, there are a variety of reasons, but I think in many cases, what we end up having is we have the battle, the adventure, the beauty is not being met. Or the beauty, the wife, has actually become a beast. So this is kind of where we talk about women. Now, again, there are various reasons, and some of them, none of them are acceptable. I do not accept this idea like, oh, you know what? My wife won't give me none, so therefore I had to go get it somewhere else. No, that's not acceptable. However, if we want to have a proper conversation, we do need to say, why do men do this? So therefore, we can try to cut it off before it gets to that point, before a man makes a dumb decision, right? And this is two parts. This is part on the man. This is part on the woman, which we'll see here in just a minute. So let me play another video because I think this one is very telling. It's very interesting. I don't know where this came from. It just kind of popped up on my radar. And so I thought, oh, this will be a good inclusion in the show. So here we go.
She's not younger than me, she's not skinnier than me, and she's not prettier than me. Then why couldn't it just be me?
Because she's softer than you. She's quieter than you. She doesn't yell at me. She doesn't call me a or tell me to all the time. She listens to me. She's nice to me. She doesn't make me feel like the only thing stopping her from being happy is me.
All right. Did you get the point there? He's still looking for his beauty, but she has become a beast, right? Marriage is a two-way street, right? It's not just about sex. Yes, men need sex. It's part of the adventure, the battle, the beauty. It's a component. It helps let him know, yes, I have achieved those things. However, if you've done the battle, if you've done the adventure, and then you got the beauty, and that beauty has become a beast. What did I say earlier when I said, think about my comment earlier when I said, men don't do stuff for nothing. We also don't do stuff so that we can be picked on. Like, I'm not going to go and travel the world to find my beauty. I'm not going to go through adventure so I can be beat up at the home front. Right? Now, again, I'm not excusing infidelity. It's unacceptable. Men, the way that you address this is you communicate. Right? This man here in this video, he's already done his wrong. Right? Like, presumably. I'm just basing it on that little clip because I don't know where it came from. Right? Presumably, he's already done the deed. And then she's like, hey, what in the heck happened? You got the girl. You have the beauty. And he's like, he's basically saying the beauty has become the beast. The problem is he didn't tell her that beforehand. Again, I'm making a presumption because I haven't seen the full clip. I don't know where it's from. But just based on the clip that we watched, he is telling her after the fact. He's like, hey, you become a beast. You're not the beauty that I went through that adventure for, that I went through the battle for, you know, that I did all these goofy things to make you laugh and to capture your heart. You've stopped being the beauty. You need to be the beauty. And men, if that's you, again, I'm being very careful to not necessarily give relationship advice here with somebody that I don't know. But if that's you, that conversation needs to happen long before you get to that point. That's how you head it off. You've got to have this kind of conversation before you do the good deed, or the evil deed, right? You have to. That is important. Relationships require communication. They have to have communication. And if you're not communicating with each other, then you're growing apart and terrible things tend to happen. Somebody cheats on somebody, whatever, right? You leave them. You know, you ignore them. Perhaps you become an alcoholic, right? You dive into drugs. You do all these things. I want to read something else from Wild at Heart here. Let me pull this up here. This is very interesting. Sorry, the way that I've got the ebook up, and in order for me to get to the parts that I want, I have to like do a bunch of clicking. So I apologize for that. All right, so this is not necessarily related to affairs, but he says, how come there are so many sports widows losing their husbands each weekend to the golf course or the TV? Why are so many men addicted to sports? It's the biggest adventure many of them ever taste. Why do so many others lose themselves in their careers? Same reason. I noticed the other day that the Wall Street Journal advertises itself to men as adventures in capitalism. I know guys who spend hours online, trading stocks. There's a taste of excitement and a risk to it, no question. And who's to blame? The rest of their life is chores and tedious routine. It's no coincidence that many men fall into an affair, not for love, not even for sex, but by their own admission for adventure. So many guys have been told to put that adventure spirit behind them and be responsible, meaning live only for duty. Okay? There has to be more in that relationship. You have to, and this is a two-way street. Both people are responsible for each other. This is not like ultimately the man is responsible for his own actions. So if a man goes out and he does something that he's not supposed to be doing, he's ultimately the one that's responsible for it. However, the part leading up to that, before the actual deed is done, the part leading up where the feelings are growing, they're festering, that is both of you. It's on me to communicate to my wife if things aren't going so well. It's on me to communicate to my wife if, per se, like she's not meeting my needs or she's squelching me, you know, like my sense of adventure, if she's doing that. Let me read another part. This is very interesting. I love this part here. Let's see. Where did it go here? Where'd you go? Man, it's so difficult to find things in here sometimes. Oh, that's the bookmarks. Let me go back to the highlights. Oh, where did it go? Oh goodness, I'm trying to find it. Sorry, it doesn't. I'm not able to order these in the way that I want, and so I have to. Let's see. I think is it this one? Yes. Okay, so emasculation happens in marriage as well. Women are often attracted to the wilder side of a man. Remember the whole bad boy thing? But once having caught him, they settle down to the task of domesticating him. Ironically, if he gives in, he'll resent her for it, and she in turn will wonder where the passion has gone. Most marriages wind up there. A weary and lonely woman asked me the other day, "How do I get my husband to come alive?" And he said, "Invite him to be dangerous," I said. She goes, "You mean I should let him get the motorcycle, right?" And the author here says, "Yep." She shrank back, disappointment on her face. "I know you're right, but I hate the idea. I've made him tame for years." Right? This is the point for which both people have a responsibility to each other. Now, that doesn't mean that, like, okay, if your husband's not, being as, as loving and all the things that he did when he was courting you, it's not to say, like, you should be like, hey, you should go get a motorcycle, right? You should have a conversation with him. You should say, all right, what's missing here? What do you need, right? Likewise, men to women. But again, I'm talking from a male perspective here. So I'm really kind of focusing on men at this particular point, right? Men need adventure, right? I have a scooter. Don't laugh. I see you laughing out there. It's a nice one. It'll go 90 miles an hour, okay? Ask me how I know, right? So I've even got a ticket for it. An officer pulled me over and said, "You're going too fast on a scooter." My son rides with me. He's 6. I'm teaching him the value of adventure. You know what my wife said? She said, "Bring him home in one piece. Don't kill him." Like, she said, actually, I think she corrected herself and said, like, either one of you, both of you come home in one piece. All right. But my wife understands, like, men need some adventure. And so she gives us that opportunity. She doesn't get in the way of that adventure. When I brought my son out to show him some of the woodworking tools. Now, there are some that are off limits. The table saw is off limits until he gets significantly older. But there are other ones which I feel like he can utilize safely without, significant risk. So we do. I introduce my son to the value of adventure, to the value of battle, if you will. That's the whole fishing part, right? One day he's going to battle a fish to bring it in, right? These are battles that he gets to have. As he gets older, the battles will get different. They will maybe get more challenging. Hopefully not like physical fighting battle, but perhaps maybe one of those here and there too. But hopefully he will go out and he will battle the world. He will find a sense of adventure and he will find his beauty. But that doesn't stop once you get the beauty. And so it's very important, it's vitally important that the couple recognize this and they look for opportunities to do the adventure. Because when men find adventure, when men find battle, when men feel like, yeah, I've got the beauty, they're willing to do all sorts of things, right? They'll put it this way. Let me show you why sex is so important. I'm not show you, but let me tell you. Think of it this way. You ever had that friend that went out and got laid, and then you met them the next day and they're just beaming from ear to ear with a grin? They're just happy. And you're like, yep, somebody got some last night. It could be a friend who's single and just, got a hookup. It could be a friend who's married, whatever. It doesn't matter, like for the purposes of this particular point. The point is, think about how they felt, how they were beaming, how they were just ready to take on the day, right? That is a component of the adventure, the battle, the beauty, right? The adventure was going out, finding somebody, if you're a single guy. The battle was getting the woman to come home with you. Now, again, I'm not necessarily suggesting you do this, I'm illustrating a point here, right? And then he got the beauty, and then he's happy. The same thing can and should happen on a fairly regular basis in a marriage. Now, over time, it changes. It looks different, right? Maybe one day, like my wife isn't impressed that I climbed a tree necessarily, okay? She'll be impressed about other things 10 years after we've been married. There'll be different things that impress her, that get her excited than when we first met each other, right? And that's the way that it works. But you have to constantly be in communication with each other. And if you're not in communication with each other, then you end up parting way, emotionally parting ways. And then inevitably something bad happens. Or in some cases, nothing bad happens, but you have a terrible marriage, a marriage that you otherwise just don't want anymore. And you may stick together just for the kids or just because you can, but it's not a fulfilling marriage. And there's no reason that it shouldn't be a fulfilling marriage. All right. So on the topic of communication and on the topic of do men need sex, let's put this into real perspective. Let's show you two sides of the same coin. So one of my favorite creators on Facebook, she goes by the name of Katie McCabe. Her and her husband make all sorts of relationship advice videos, and they're phenomenally awesome. Like they are just amazing. I challenge you to go look them up. So I want you to watch this video. They do a little skit. They do a bunch of these. And I think this will really hit home for all the people that are like, men don't need sex. Why? It's not air. It's not water. Rah, rah, rah. Okay, just let's watch.
Hey, I feel like we haven't been intimate, like physically intimate in a while.
I can't believe we're having this conversation again.
It's been a few weeks.
It feels like this is all you think about. It's not like this is a need.
What do you mean it's not a need? Like, it's my need. It's one of the ways that I feel connected to you and I love you, and one of the ways that I get to enjoy that connection with my wife. I don't get to enjoy that with anybody else.
There's other forms of intimacy. Hold up a second. Are you serious? If the shoe was on the other foot, we'd be having a whole different conversation. So let's take a look at that. Hey, babe.
Hi, babe.
I just feel like we haven't spent much time together in the last couple of weeks. We're like 2 ships past the end of the night. Can we maybe do something tonight?
Well, I'm actually going to go out with the guys. Quality time isn't a need.
I know, but it's a need to me. Like, I need that quality time with you. It's important to me.
There's other ways to show you I love you outside of, spending time together. Like, I'm just going to clean the kitchen. It's like acts of service. There's physical touch. Like, here, I'll give you a hug. Here. Do like, quality time's not a need. I'd rather just go spend some time with my friends tonight.
So we see this man totally rejecting his wife's initiation of a little bit of connection. And we look at that and we say, he's neglectful, that's terrible. And yet so often in our society, we give permission to the woman who does the exact same thing to her husband who's pursuing a physical form of intimacy.
Boom. There you have it, folks. At the end of the day, a couple, they both have needs being in the context of this is a need for me to be fulfilled in this relationship, not a need for survival. Okay? Both of them do. And yes, there may be women where it's their need is more sexual, more physical, and the man's need is more like, having conversations, spending quality time. It's not always that just men are the one that want sex. It can be vice versa. It can be some variation, right? It can be some degrees where a man typically is looking for physical need, but then also has some emotional need or some, the quality time that he's looking for as well. So it's not necessarily one or the other for each one, right? It can be in variations. How do you identify that? You have conversations. You talk to each other. You make sure you stay. And sometimes the conversations don't go so well, right? You might come in, you're like, hey, it's been a while. Can we have a little intimacy tonight? And then, the wife maybe is like, oh, I'm kind of tired. And, and the man gets all upset, whatever. So it's not that it always goes well, but you have to keep trying. You have to think. If you're the man and you presented it and you feel like she didn't quite get it, then you need to start thinking like, how did I communicate that? And why didn't she get the message that I communicated? Just the same way that I said at the very beginning of the show, Lila Rose, the way she communicated it, presented a certain perspective and people ran with it. And then she's like, well, that's not really what I was trying to communicate. Okay, well, that's a you problem. Whenever you're communicating, it is your job as the person communicating to ensure that your message gets across. That doesn't mean that you get louder. That doesn't mean you say the same things over and over. Sometimes you got to take a moment, stop and say, all right, what is it about me that that is communicating this in a way that they're not receiving the message as I intended it? So let me give you an example from my own life again that has nothing to do with sex, relationships, or with a marriage. Let me give you something that really caught my attention a long time ago. We have some friends, and they have 2 kids. And their kids were over at our house one day, and the daughter was doing her homework, and she was having some trouble with something. She didn't understand something. She was like, hey, can I get some help? And I said, sure. So I sat down, and I'm thinking I'm being super nice, and we're talking, and I'm like, all right, so we walked through this problem that she was having. I was like, all right, do this. And I was like, now, and I was asking questions, and I'm doing the best I could to not give her the answer, but help walk her through finding the answer. And then I thought we got to the point where she understood it. And so I walk away kind of like, yeah, I just, this kid that's not even my kid that I don't know very well. So I don't know what motivates them, how they understand, information and stuff like that. Like, I don't know these things. Like, I'm walking away feeling like, yeah, I just helped some kid understand some of their schoolwork. Cool. I'm like, later, my wife tells me, she said she sat down with the girl, and the girl was like, he sounded angry. And I was like, what? Angry? I wasn't angry at all. Like, I was stunned. I was blown away, because I'm like, how did that happen? Like, what is it about me that led this young girl to think that I was angry when I was actually more than happy to try to help her with her homework? And I walked away feeling a bit proud that I thought I helped her with her homework. And her impression was, this guy's angry. Like, this happens in communication in general. You say something and you didn't mean it in a particular way. Maybe it was the word choice. Maybe it was the tone that you used. Maybe it was your facial expressions. There could be any number of things that went into communicating this in a way that was unintended. And that's the point. You have to keep trying. But more importantly, you have to spend a little bit of time thinking about, how did I communicate that? What was my tone of voice? Did I roll my eyes when she said something, right? Did I scoff? She said this, and and a lot of times it's minor, it's small. It's the micro expressions, right? Those a lot of times are what really are the big takeaway that somebody gets. And sometimes they don't even realize it. That's what makes communication so terribly difficult, because I could communicate something to my wife and she could be like, wow, you seem angry today. And I'm like, really? I don't think I'm angry, but what is it about that? And she may or may not be able to articulate it. She might just be like, you just feel angry today. Like, okay, well, that doesn't tell me what to change. This is the whole point. You have to keep in communication with the other person. But number one, to the point of the whole entire show, adventure, battle, beauty. Okay? That has to be on the table. That has to be understood for a man. After that, then you can have conversations about, okay, what are the dynamics of our relationship? How do we keep that flame going? And if you do those things, I think you will find out that your marriage is in far better shape than it would be without them. That's my show, folks. I think that, yes, men need sex. Is it raw, animalistic sex? Perhaps sometimes, right? But is it just men or just dogs? Maybe when they're young and single. But afterward, it's an entirely different dynamic. I want to end on this. I was talking to a pastor friend of mine the other day, and he said, he goes, there's a reason that sex becomes more fulfilling as a couple is married longer. He said initially, and I'm kind of paraphrasing, he's like, initially, he goes, it's just pure fun. This is why, people say, oh, there's the honeymoon phase. You guys are humping like little rabbits, right? Because you're just having fun. But then eventually, it becomes more part of a fulfilled marriage. And the reason for that is because you get to know each other, you know what works, and it now becomes a form of almost a communication itself, almost a bringing each other together. And like the guy said in the video, he was like, this is the one thing that I can do with you that nobody else gets in any way, shape, or form, right? Like, that's the one thing. Like, you might say, well, what about kissing? I kiss my son on the cheek. right? It's not the same type of kiss as I would give my wife, but it is a kiss, right? It is my lips touching the skin of another human, which kind of sounds creepy, but I promise you I'm not trying to make it sound creepy. I'm just trying to put it in perspective, right? So if you want a fulfilled marriage, I believe that sex does play a role. And that, yes, for many men, sex is a big deal. It is a need. In the same way that many women, quality time is a need. It is a big deal. And there is a point in a marriage when these things aren't happening, and it is no longer viable to look and point fingers, because it becomes a chicken egg situation. So you need to focus on yourself first and foremost, and then you need to focus on communicating. I like to say it like this: men, treat your wife like a queen and act like a king. Women, treat your husband like a king and act like a queen. And then lots of sexy time as much as possible. All right, let's check out some of the comments and see what you guys have been up to today. Then we're going to get out of here. Let's see here. Oh, we got to get to the live chat. Bam, there we go. All right, let's see. There's a good handful of comments in here, so we'll go through them. Yes, been a rough morning in the podcast stream world, that Liberty Lady. We got past it, I think. We're good to go. John says, unfortunately, many, not all, therapists have a strong tendency to validate women's perspective and dismiss men's. That is absolutely true, John. And look, you got to find, if you need a counselor, go find one that is validating both of your needs and willing to basically hold both of you accountable. If that's not happening, that's probably not the right person. And it may be the case, like I generally believe that it takes two. It could possibly be the case that the man is more guilty or that the woman is more guilty. But again, chicken egg. There is a certain point where that just doesn't really matter, right? Like each person now needs to work on their own selves, and they need to hear the other person, because it becomes too much a web, and you're trying to figure out, okay, where did this start? Sometimes it doesn't matter. You're where you are. You've got to get out of it. End of story. Right? I mean, think about that web, right? That web analogy that I just kind of made up on the fly. If you're a fly, no pun intended, and you get caught in a web, does it really matter how big the web is, where it started, like which angle it was that caught you? No, you're in the web. You need to get out, or the spider will eat you. Hope that was a good analogy. Let's see. If celibacy is connected with God, then why are ministers and pastors not bound by God or Scripture to be celibate? I'm going to leave the Scripture references and requirements alone, just because I don't bill myself as a Christian. I've been attending some services and checking things out, but I'm going to let that one sit. That's a question for a good pastor. Let's see. Let's see. There were some issues with the audio cutting in and out. I apologize. I don't know what to say about that. I do know that music will sometimes cut in and out. There's a reason for that. It's a technical reason, which I've not really found a good answer for, and I think I understand why. But sometimes when I'm playing music, it will kind of go up and down, and I think that has something to do with the echo cancellation, but I'm not really sure. But if my voice audio is going in and out, that I don't have much of an answer for at all. Let's see here. Let's see. Anne-Marie, AI boss. Men do need to realize, even in marriage, that women go through menopause, develop inside issues like endometriosis, and it may actually hurt to have sex, but there are other ways to have sex. I agree, and I do not want this to be taken as when a man asks for sex, a woman needs to give it. I know there are plenty of people out there, and they'll try to quote scripture like your body's not your own, whatnot. None of that was what I'm saying. All I am talking about is there is a certain reality with the idea that a man does have a need for sex. It's not a need in the same context as air, water, and whatnot. And to Lila Rose's point, yes, celibacy, it can be a part of marriage, like a component of it, right? Like And I've seen the arguments online where people will say like, well, if a woman has just had a baby, some people will go, yeah, she can, buck up and help her man out. A man shouldn't have to wait. And other people are like, a man can wait a few weeks. I fall on the man can wait a few weeks. I mean, if a woman just gave birth to your new child, I mean, like, you'll be all right. You went a while before you got married, not having sex. You can wait as your wife, recovers. Or if your wife is going through something, you can wait. Many men, they have, like, my mom died of cancer. There was like a whole year where she was basically slowly dying. And my dad did not cheat on her. He did everything that he could, to make her life, the quality of her life, as best as possible. And I remember my mom saying, I'll never forget this, because I was very close to my mom. She said, your dad has treated me better during this time than he has ever treated me before. And my dad always treated my mom pretty well, right? So yes, there is a reality to this. It is not like, if you're a man, you don't walk away and go, yeah, DL said, I need sexy time. No, he did not. What I said was, your desire for sexy time, the need, that component is real. I also said you need to be in communication with your wife. And that communication will help out during the times where maybe she's not going through anything, but not feeling the love. She's not feeling the excitement. Well, perhaps that is a part of the conversation that you need to have. What's going to get this feeling of excitement back? Even if it wanes, right? Because I mean, look, life is full of stressors. There are times where I'm just not in the mood. There's times where the wife's not in the mood, right? I don't want to divulge, our personal life too much. This is just a certain reality that every couple faces, right? You have to be in communication. So I agree, Anne-Marie. And by the way, thanks for joining the show. Let's see what else we got here. Oh yeah. Let's see if I can go. Keith says there is the joke about the men's store. I don't know if you guys have heard about it. Each floor of the store has better men, and then what is it like at the top? The woman just keeps looking for a better man and a better man and a better man, and then she gets to the top and then she's disappointed, something like that. At a certain point, you have to learn when you found that certain someone. Like my wife asked me when we were first together, and I was like, hey, let's get married. And she was like, what if I'm not the right woman for you? What if there's somebody better? And I was like, there's always somebody that's going to laugh a little bit more at my jokes, that maybe is a little bit more attractive, that maybe has a little bit more time to spend with me, that maybe this, maybe that, maybe this. If you look at it that way, you will always be looking, because you will be like, what if there's a little more? What if there's a little more? At some point, you say, this is what's going to make me fulfilled. I don't need anything more. Like, this will make me fulfilled. And that's where we are. So I'm told that's the third Spider-Man. All right, awesome. Thank you for that. Let's see. Ooh, good comment here, Keith. There are no perfect solutions, only trade-offs. Absolutely correct. Let's see. Right on what I just said. That Liberty Lady points out early, before I said it. Unhappy people seek constant pleasure. Larry Sharp. That is true. You have to learn when what you have will be what you can be happy with. It's not that hard, really. You find somebody, you're like, oh, I'm happy with this person. They make me feel great. I am ready to live a long life with them. And then you keep working on it. You keep putting that effort in. Let's see. The Disney lie. If only you marry Prince Charming, you will live happily ever after. That's true. There is no happily ever after per se. Not in the Disney way. But there is, let's put it, happily fulfilled thereafter, right? You're fulfilled. But it's a constant effort on both parties. So if you're a man or you're a woman, go out there and put in that constant work. Make sure you're evaluating your own self, and make sure that the other person, you are having good conversation and hearing what they have to say. And then find that happy medium where both of you can be fulfilled. All right, folks, I'm going to head on out. I will see you guys tonight, 9 p.m. Again, tomorrow there is no show. All right? So just remember that. No show tomorrow morning. I'm going to take a break, maybe catch up on some things. Thank you for watching, and I hope you found this episode informative and inspiring. Be sure to catch me Monday through Friday, 7:30 a.m. for an informed discussion on politics and culture. Make sure that you're subscribed to my YouTube channel, or if you prefer my Rumble channel, you can go to youtube.libertydad.com, or you can go to rumble.libertydad.com. While you are there, let me know how I'm doing by leaving me a comment. Remember, if you're a champion of liberty, your business is people and your product is liberty. I want you to have a great week. Catch you next time, but for now, I'm out.